Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Evan Ash, joined as always by Corey Puffett and Eric Meyer. And today on the show, we're going to talk about the preseason in the NFL, some other odds and ends from track and the NBA. But we will start with the breaking news out of Major League Baseball. If you haven't been paying attention super closely, the Orioles are terrible. Buster Olney is the first person to notice this on the face of the earth, and he's just got to shout it from the heavens. So let's just start off with a quick list of games the Orioles have won since their last show a week ago. All right, that's all those. And then
I'm sorry, did you miss a couple?
No, I didn't miss any, but I just want to dive in a little more depth. So here's the list of games the Orioles have won since we've done our past two shows. Oh boy. So, and then I have also tabulated a list of all the games the Orioles have won since we recorded our show, episode 153. This is episode 156. So 3 shows ago, 3 weeks tonight, on August 2nd, the Orioles did win that night up in New York, 7-1. To borrow a phrase, that's it. That's the list. So, it hasn't been great. A lot of people suck at baseball. Really, all 26 guys on the roster, everybody has been terrible. Even All-Star Cedric Mullins has been bad. Trey Mancini has grown this mustache now. He looks like a cartoon character. I guess you got to be willing to try anything at this point. Like if this is your job, 12 hours a day, and you just keep getting pounded on national TV in front of everybody, I guess it is crazy mustache time. So, it's been a bit of a rough go of it in Orioles land. So that's 18 losses in a row. The Orioles got swept at home by the Braves in a series that wasn't particularly close. It's really, a good team demonstrating that they're a good team and a bad team demonstrating that they're a bad team. It's really all there was to that. So, I wore my bright orange polo shirt to work on Friday. I was all excited and stuff. It's really a foolish feeling to have, is excitement about this team. Either of you have anything to add?
Yeah, I actually watched pretty much the entire game that the Orioles were pretending like they were interested in winning against the Braves, where they only lost by 1 run. That was something, I guess. They also got Maddoxed by one of the Braves' not that good of pitchers.
Max
Was
Fried.
it Bruce
Yeah.
Smite?
I mean,
Max
you
Fried?
started him against me in fantasy.
Because I needed somebody. That wasn't really. That was mostly. Oh well, I need somebody, and they're facing the Orioles, so they'll probably be okay.
Well, it worked
I
out.
opened my phone, I'm like-
got you back in it.
Yeah, I know. It made me interested in the weekend for the fan because I figured, okay, Corey's gonna kick my ass, and I'm gonna not make the playoffs. And as it turned out, Corey ended up beating me, but it was interesting at least for Saturday and Sunday until later on when Corey's last pitcher went and he racked up a bunch of points. But that got me kind of in the mix where I was like, hey, I might actually be able to pull this one off. I didn't, but that was pretty much on brand for the Orioles to allow Max Fried to throw a complete game shutout on 90 pitches. I mean, that's just atrocious.
Yeah, I think I watched the first 2 innings of that game. Somebody did a 2-run home run for the Braves. I'm like, oh, well, this is an insurmountable lead. Time to turn this off.
It feels like the 2010 Mariners. That's how I used to watch them. They'd fall behind 2 runs, and I'm like, okay, well, we're not winning today.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that happened. Let's see, there's been some news out of the Orioles. They have done some things. There's only so much you can say. Like, oh, we're trying, but you keep running out the same bums every single night. So now the Orioles have brought in some different bums. So Michael Franco got DFA'd, only about 5 months too late, I guess. So don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you on that one. It's just brutal.
Dude can't play.
Yeah.
Just flat out can't play.
Just utterly pointless out there. Just taking up space in the batter's box. Like, could we just have 8 guys in the lineup at this point? Well, really, the Orioles lineup's like 3 guys, right? It's Mullins, Mancini, Mountcastle at the top, and then 6 automatic outs. So Franco's DFA'd. He won't be missed. The Orioles claimed right-hand pitcher Connor Green off of waivers from the Dodgers. That's about as relevant as it sounds. Richie Martin was sent down to AAA. I'm kind of disappointed. I would like to see more of him, but, that's fine. Kelvin Gutierrez was called up from AAA. He's been up with the Orioles before. He didn't make any noise. And then Jahmai Jones finally has been called up from AAA. I think the Orioles got Jahmai Jones from the Angels. Was that in the Bundy deal or was that in the Alex Cobb deal?
I don't know.
One
of those.
Well, one of those. Orioles Twitter had a meltdown today, as it is prone to do when even the smallest thing happens. So they call up somebody who's a prospect. I went to go see the Norfolk Tides play when they came down here to Gwinnett about a month ago now. And, the Tides are terrible. They made a bunch of dumb mistakes. No shortage of toot blands and whatnot. But Jahmai Jones made it clear that he was the best player on that team. Granted, that's not saying much. And Adley wasn't there at the time. But so, excited to see what he can bring to the team. Even if it's just being named something other than Michael Franco, right? Just be a different guy. I already mentioned how everybody sucks. That's not news, except if you're Buster Olney.
Or Ken Rosenthal.
Ken Rosenthal, yes. Ken Rosenthal wrote an article today in The Athletic. I don't have The Athletic, so I'm sure it bashed the Orioles for being incompetent and completely ignored the American League has been full of incompetent teams for more than a century. So this isn't new for anybody either who actually follows baseball. But, I'm sure these writers will be like, oh, you kids today, y'all only know about stuff that happened the last 15 minutes. So I'm sure we'll hear that as well. The schedule this week, the Orioles are off today, thank God. So they're not going to lose today. Orioles undefeated today. Just going great. They host the Angels for 3 starting tomorrow night, and then the Rays for 3 starting Friday. Ohtani's scheduled to pitch Wednesday, so that game should be on national TV because he's going to do something spectacular, right? He's going to throw.
He had a really good outing his last time out, and he wasn't facing the Orioles.
Yeah, he's going to pitch a perfect game and hit 4 home runs in the same night. It's going to happen. Okay, you heard it here first, folks. So yeah, that's all in the Orioles. So I guess we'll switch over to a team that knows how to baseball. And Corey, your Yankees, they've been
they figured out how to baseball fairly recently. It certainly helps that we finally went out and got some lefties into our lineup. I mean, you figure that's kind of the winning formula when you're playing in Yankee Stadium with that short porch.
Yeah,
you want some lefties in the lineup. Yeah. So I don't know what Brian Cashman was thinking up until now, but he finally must have realized, oh yeah, these are the dimensions of this park. Maybe we should go ahead and put some lefties in here.
That's when you go make the moves at the deadline. So we did.
So like Evan, I'll start with a very brief, quick list. Here is a list of the games that the Yankees have lost since our last show.
Yeah, okay, fine.
There
We
you
get
go.
it. They're hot. We understand.
So, got a 3-game sweep against the Red Sox, which was huge for us. That put us up above them in the standings, and since then we've actually extended that lead over them a little bit. We currently own the number 1 wild card spot, which it's funny because middle of last week, Eric and I were talking on the chats, and we were like, yeah, we're probably not going to catch Cleveland, but then we did, and we passed them. So, or was it Cleveland or Minnesota? Whoever was holding
It
this.
wasn't Minnesota.
Or no, Oakland.
No,
Oakland.
it
It was
was
Oakland.
yeah.
Anyway, after that, we won the first 3 games against Minnesota before Game 4 was postponed until September because of inclement weather. And we start a 2-game set against Atlanta tonight. This will be a tough series. One of the 2 teams is going to get to a 10-game win streak tonight. It's the first time in 120 years that 2 teams enter a series, each of them on a streak of 9 or more consecutive wins. So, big series between those 2 teams. The one thing of note that I wanted to talk about from this past week was Rough Note Odor. He had a bit of so he was at bat, and he puts he's batting lefty, puts his left hand up to call time, and the umpire does exactly what the umpire is supposed to do, bolts out of the box, gets out of the way, calls time. The pitcher is already into his motion, and he delivers the pitch. And Odor says, screw it, I'll swing. And he launches a 3-run home run. Except, you called timeout, you idiot. And then he has the gall to argue about it after the fact. What are you doing?
What is he arguing?
What are you doing? You called timeout. You don't think, let's just put aside the fact that he called timeout, right? When we talk about football and we talk about the decisions more recently for referees to let plays, run their course and then go back and review, like fumbles, for example, right? You let the play run its course. You let a guy pick up the ball and try and return it or whatever. Even if you think the guy was probably down, if you're not for sure, you let the play run out because you can go back and correct that, right? Because once you call the play dead, it doesn't matter if somebody picks up the ball and runs it for a touchdown and then you realize, oh, that actually was a fumble, because when you blow the whistle, what happens?
It's dead.
Most of the other players stop trying because the play has been called dead. You don't think, if you're Rough Note Odor, you don't think that there's a chance that the pitcher, as he comes out of his windup, starts his delivery home, sees the umpire running out of the box, and that couldn't have affected his release and made it just hang there for you to smack it yard?
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Go for it.
Why do you keep calling him Roughnet Odor?
That's how it's been pronounced.
His name is Rugnet Odor. It's not Roughnet.
Every time I've heard it on broadcast,
It's not
been
Roughnet Odor.
Okay, well, Rugnet Odor. I've been wondering where the missing H was.
Yeah,
but
I was curious. I was like, that's not
but
how you say it.
I've always heard it pronounced Roughnet.
Who are you? Is this on the
Because
Yes
people
Network?
because people call him Ruffy or Roofy or whatever.
I've never.
That
heard
was
of-
Rogie.
I've heard him called a Roogie. Yeah,
I've never heard that one. You
Roofy.
called him Ruffy once.
I never called him Ruffy.
You definitely did.
No, I definitely never called him Ruffy or Roofy for that.
When
matter.
when he first got when he first got to the Yankees this year, you called him Ruffy.
My ass, I did.
I definitely
We can
never
check
did
the tape
that
with
before.
Hugh Jackson. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
Anyway, Rugnet Odor.
He's acting a fool.
He was acting a fool.
Yeah, you call timeout, plays dead. Everybody knows that.
So he's arguing. The bench was arguing. I'm like, come on,
The
guys.
bench is arguing.
Why? Why do we have to be clowns about
This
this?
sounds like some more Aaron Boone nonsense. Where just
It
yelling
wasn't even
at
Aaron
everybody else.
Boone.
Tighten it up.
It was
Yeah.
a different Aaron. Aaron Judge seemed a little bit irritated. I was like, God damn it, come on.
I get being irritated that you lost
Got a
out on a
bad
bomb,
signal.
but it's not in play. The time is out. That's like saying if the ref blows the whistle and Steph Curry launches up a 40-foot three and it goes in, well, that counts, right? No, play is dead. This is not actually happening. This is not live basketball. It's not a live play. You know this. We know this. Doctor, we know this. Come on.
Yeah, Doctor, we noticed. My issue is with the umpire on this one because the pitch was imminent. You shouldn't have granted timeout in this situation, if you ask me. The pitcher is in his windup ready to throw the ball, and then time. Like, no, don't stop the game just cuz. So that's my issue with this right here. He hit a home run. I don't care that he hit a home run on a pitch that didn't count.
That's fine, but if you're Odor, you can't be upset. Like, you're the one who asked for time.
You were granted time. You got what you want.
Like, if you don't want time, or you don't think that time should be granted because the pitch is imminent, don't call time.
Yeah, and that's more to the pitcher's benefit too, is the fact that, pitchers, as somebody who pitched, I hated it when people called time in the middle of my life, because it's like, my inclination is to stop my motion at that point.
Just throw the ball at the guy.
Yeah, and then so they would always tell you, throw the ball anyway. Well, that's how people get hurt, because we're no longer playing baseball. People aren't paying as close of attention. If I just throw the ball in there and don't really care where it goes, things can happen. As I 100% agree, if the pitch is imminent, the umpires need to do a little better and be a little more conservative of who they grant time to in situations like that. Now, I get it, if he's in the stretch and you call timeout at the same time as he's lifting his leg, those things are going to happen. But if his windup is started...
Well, okay, he had not quite lifted his leg. He lifted his leg just after Odor called for time.
But was he pitching out of the stretch, or was he in the windup?
He was at the stretch.
Okay, so the runners on base. Okay. Well, yeah, in that case, yeah. I still think, though, if it's like simultaneous, things happen. You can't help that. The umpire has to try to grant him time if he so desires. The umpire can tell him to go screw himself no matter what. Like, he could be sitting there right at the start, and the guy could just be holding the ball. You ask for time, the umpire can tell you no. But, I do think it's annoying when I watch a pitcher lift his leg and then time, stop play. I'm like,
sure, but that was not what happened here.
Yeah, it's just, but at the same time, the point is, what are the Yankees doing? Come on, guys.
Mm-hmm.
This is silliness, man. Like, and this isn't just two of us hate the Yankees, so we're like, I would say this about it.
I mean, I'm saying it.
Yeah, Corey's saying it. That's his squad, because it's silly. Like, it's some of the patently absurd stuff. It's like the time that Jim Leland blew a gasket because an umpire just did not even make a call because he fell asleep. It was the first base umpire. And so he missed a call where the guy was clearly out. And so he asked for help. He asked he just kind of said safe at first because he didn't know. And then he asked the home plate umpire for help, and the umpire was like, dude, he was way out. And so he was like, okay, then out. And Jim Leland lost his mind. I'm like, dude, come on.
Why is Jim Leland was upset that the home plate umpire unnecessarily corrected the first base umpire.
No, he didn't unnecessarily correct him.
Right,
the first base umpire knew that he didn't really know.
Leland's argument was that it was the first base umpire's call, and the fact that he didn't know, they should have stuck with his call, which is nonsense, because everybody knows.
Yeah. No,
everybody could see the guy was
Leland needs to go yell at the first base umpire to tell him to remove his head from his behind and watch the game that he's supposed to watch.
I'm pretty sure that conversation happened in the midst of all this. This was just, you had something that you thought cool happened, you stole a base, basically, and you were given a free out, and then you lost it because a self-correcting system said no. It's like with the Jeopardy host, where this guy clearly didn't deserve the job, but then he loses it, so all the white people have to come out in droves and defend this guy, even though it was just correcting itself from.
Wait, are people coming out and defending him right now?
Oh, people are like, oh, it's unfair, he got canceled, and yada yada yada.
He got canceled.
Yeah,
he canceled himself.
A guy that nobody knew, who
right?
Inserted
I've
himself
never heard
in the
of
mix.
this guy before in my life.
Like, he pretty much elbowed his way to the front he took Ken Jennings' last 2 weeks on Jeopardy, and then he made himself look the best with the editing and stuff. Made sure that his episodes were super edited to look like he was all buttoned up, and other hosts that people were clamoring for looked worse. And then he gets the job, and people find out he's a douche, and they're like, maybe this guy shouldn't have the job anymore. I'm like, I call that self-correction. I don't call that canceling. This guy, if Ken Jennings had tweets revealed that he said something silly or stupid or inappropriate in the past, he probably would still keep the job. You know why? Because people actually want to see Ken Jennings host Jeopardy. Nobody wanted this guy.
It's also worth pointing out that there's no such thing as canceling, right? It's called consequences for doing bad stuff.
But it was 5 years ago. Like, that was so long ago. And he was in his late 30s. Yeah, he really grew up a lot. What?
we were talking about? I think we were talking about baseball.
Yes,
I
we
think
were,
we
but
were.
I took us off the beaten path. We got time
Yes,
today.
we did.
I
Yeah,
got
we did.
time today because we don't have that much to talk about.
Because you
sports-wise.
stuck your hand in the umpire's face, and you got extra time. My issue with this, back to the point here, is
That's good.
why does anybody need timeout? What are we waiting for? The pitcher needs to throw the ball. The batter needs to hit the ball.
We're
There's
You don't need to
plenty of
stand there
time
and look
between
around
pitches
and
as it is.
adjust your gloves again.
Yeah,
No.
the only purpose of calling time as a hitter, the only time I ever called time,
Trying to throw the pitcher
just
off
to
his
throw the
rhythm.
pitcher off his game. It was pure gamesmanship. It had nothing
Now
to do
he's
with,
off his rhythm.
Yeah, I'm not sitting there saying, "Oh, I got
Street smarts.
tight sitting here with the bat in my hand, even though I'm loosey goosey up here."
It's not a tight sphincter situation, right? It's just baseball.
Yeah, we're just playing baseball here, man.
Yeah, it's just baseball. I don't know the Yankees.
Anyway,
Corey, why do you have a thermometer?
I just have one.
But you're just filling with it right now.
Yeah,
you got
just-
a fever?
No,
Is the only cure more cowbell?
just fiddling. That's all.
Well, stop doing that.
Does it bother you that much?
Yeah, you gotta get a fidget spinner or something, man. You're just acting like
I
a
mean,
nervous
yeah,
Nelly over here.
Eric, you got to know what it's like.
I'm not a ninth grader 5 years ago.
Well, I mean, Eric, do you know what it's like to try to do a podcast and only see one person who cannot stop bouncing up and down the whole time?
Oh,
Just sit there.
Does it bug you out? Well, maybe we should turn the camera to me.
I mean, it doesn't bother me that much. It was really
Sounds like
apparent
it's
when
pretty
I was
upsetting.
there in person 2 weeks ago.
Can we move on
And
to the Padres?
Yeah. The Padres would like us to move on as well because they're in the process of moving out of the playoff picture. They're toast. They have to play competent teams the rest of the way for the most part. And that's complete opposite for the Cincinnati Reds. So, it's really, now that we're getting deeper into the playoff race, it's really a benefit to look on your schedule and see Cupcake City. I think the Reds play the Pirates like 9 or 10 times the rest of the season. Like, they're in last place. The Phillies have a similar situation. Lots of Marlins and Nationals. The Phillies also play the Orioles down the stretch. We've talked about them at length already. So, as fun as the Padres were and are, it looks like they might not live up to expectations that they built for themselves. And it might not even be their fault, really, with the schedule and, the way their division's lined up with two really good teams ahead of them. But then also, like, the Padres have squandered some opportunities. I mean, they're going to have 19 games against the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. And the Padres just lost the series to the Diamondbacks.
That's
So,
pretty
like,
unforgivable.
there's no woe is me when it's self-inflicted. There's no flukes over 162 games. Either get it done or go home.
Yeah, like the big thing with the Padres to me is not so much that they're a lot worse than we thought. It's more that there are a couple teams that we didn't expect to be here that are here. We didn't think the Giants were going to be
Hell
this good.
no.
And
No.
while I thought the Reds could kind of hang out in the crummy Central, the Central hasn't really been that crummy at the top. The Brewers are a legitimately good team.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, they've been out of the division race for months, but they've gotten hot and they're in the wild card race. So that's two teams that we didn't expect to hear from down the stretch that are here.
Yep.
And the Padres have sort of just been muscled out. I mean, I do think that there are points that the Padres can look at and say, wow, that was a disappointment. Like, Blake Snell has been bad this year.
Yeah.
Yu Darvish hasn't been as good as they expected. Their pitching was kind of supposed to be what fueled their pennant chances this year, because while their lineup is strong, it was really their rotation that they spent a ton of money and a ton of effort bolstering with trading for Snell, acquiring Yu Darvish. They got Musgrove. They got Chris Paddock, who has just fallen completely from grace. He was supposed to be the guy back in 2018 or 2019 when he was the hot prospect with Tatis coming up to be the frontline rotation guy, and he's just not that at all at this point. So there is some disappointment, but at the same time, if you're the Padres, what do you really do? I mean, they decided to hold.
You have to beat the Dodgers.
Yeah, but they made an effort to say we're going to hold where we are instead of going all in at the deadline. They did not mortgage their entire future. They still have a top 5 farm system because they didn't make grand efforts to acquire Max Scherzer or Trey Turner or any of the number of guys that they were supposedly interested in. They said, no, we're going to hold on to our guys. We're going to let the Dodgers potentially make those decisions, and then we're going to take advantage of the fact that we have a 4 or 5 year window where we're still going to be very competitive. And so the result might just be this year where they don't make the playoffs. It is what it is.
And I can respect that, but it's it's still going to be a little bit disappointing as a fan because it's a lot like last week on the show we briefly mentioned the game between the Rams and the Chiefs in the regular season that was just absolutely bonkers, but then we didn't. Was it the Rams and the Chiefs? It was the Rams and the Chiefs, right?
The Chiefs played, yeah.
And then we didn't get that in the Super Bowl, and it was kind of disappointing. And
a big part of the reason it was disappointing is the game sucked.
Well, the game itself sucked, but it would have been nice to have something like that and have those two teams meet up again in the Super Bowl. And now we're looking at likely we're not going to get a chance to see the Padres and the Dodgers play again in the playoffs. Those two early season series, those really got me jazzed up for the season as a whole. But then, once you got past those series and you didn't have quite, like those sorts of exciting matchups as much, I kind of went back into my normal, mid-season lull of baseball. Like those two series, kept me hyped for a good month and a half, maybe even 2 months of the baseball season. And then I just kind of
electric.
Yeah, and then my interest has just kind of waned since then. And I need something like that, I feel like, to get me, jazzed back up for the playoffs. But now we're not even going to have that in the playoffs. So it's disappointing.
Well,
again, I respect the decision for the Padres to protect their future interests and make sure that they have as wide open of a window as they can have as far as future opportunities to make it, even if it means potentially sacrificing this year specifically. And I especially understand that coming off of my last fantasy football season where I gave a bunch of draft picks to get guys like Travis Kelce and the like, and then didn't even make the playoffs off of it. And now I'm looking at this year, and my team is going to suck. Or did I make the playoffs and lose in the first round?
I could have sworn you made the playoffs.
Maybe I made it and lost in the first round. Regardless, I didn't win a championship, and now I'm looking at having a terrible draft this year, most likely. So
sounds like
I can completely appreciate that decision to protect future interests.
Well, especially because if you were the Padres, there might have just been a little bit of, on the napkin calculus there where they just said the Giants are really good and the Dodgers are really good.
Dodgers are better.
So we're in a position where at best we're playing for a 1-game wild card against one of the best teams in the league. Our pennant chances are low even if we're really, really good.
Right.
So they said let's regroup and let's focus up. And if they could still make the playoffs.
They can still make the playoffs.
Dead.
And at the time, they were well in the playoff. I mean, in order for us to get to this point, they had to lose 8 of their last 10, and the Reds had to win 7 of their last 10 just to get a 1-game lead on the Padres in the wild card.
And
so
it's not
over.
The writing has been on the wall a little bit just with the scheduling down the stretch, but we figured that the Padres were going to have to go to war with the Reds to get that spot.
Yeah.
But now they've slumped at a bad time.
Yep.
The Reds have gotten hot, and the Reds have a little league scheduled the rest of the way, whereas the Padres have to go through big guns repeatedly.
Yeah.
It's looking just the numbers don't look good for them. They look like it's just not going to happen. And I agree, it's disappointing because they're such a fun, exciting team.
Yeah.
And they didn't go all in this year, which, again, we talked about. We can respect that. But at the same time, Slam Diego not being in the postseason, especially because this year they'd have home games where that crowd is electric when they're at Petco Park. And they haven't had that opportunity since, 2005? Since they've actually hosted playoff games. So, I mean, it's just disappointing. But
I'll tell you what, 2 weeks ago, looking at my Super Bowl prediction, which was Yankees versus Padres in the World Series
prediction.
What did I say?
You said Super Bowl
first. Super Bowl.
World Series prediction, which was Yankees versus Padres. I did not expect for the Yankees to be the team that is more likely to make it at this point than the Padres.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how confident I am that the Yankees are going to win the World Series or make the World Series. Just because they're probably going to have to go to the wild card.
I wouldn't
too.
say I'm particularly confident either, but
they're probably going
they're
to make the
more
playoffs,
likely
yeah.
right now than the Padres,
Absolutely.
and that is not the way I was feeling about this 2 weeks ago. I was thinking the Yankees are done, and the Padres I still got a shot
The
on.
Yankees have been coming on for about a month, though. So,
Yeah,
they had a bad series against the Red Sox, but since the All-Star break, they've been rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed we potentially lost out on, one of the best wild card games ever with the Dodgers and the Padres. Like, those teams legit don't like each other. Whatever stadium it would have been in would have been packed and hyped for this game. Two rivals in a one-game playoff. Sign me up for some of that. But unfortunately, well, I mean, I don't know about unfortunately, but it just doesn't look like the Padres quite have it this year compared to the other teams in their division and the other teams in the NL. So, yeah. Is there anything else on baseball before we go? Anything happen? All right. So before we get to football, we've got some odds and ends to take care of. Sha'Carri Richardson gets dusted is on our sheet. What is? I think this is you, Corey. What does that even mean?
I put this in there. So.
Oh, you did.
We talked about Sha'Carri Richardson during the Olympics and her situation where she was not allowed to participate due to smoking some weed for some personal issues to deal with, and we had a nuanced take on that. So this was our first opportunity to see Sha'Carri run since the Olympics, and she was going against a pretty loaded field.
Yeah.
Like, these are bona fide medalists from the Olympics. This is no joke. And so, but this is the first time we would see her be able to compete since she was DQ'd effectively from participating in the games. And she came in 9th out of 9. And brought up the rear in a significant fashion. And so, of course, social media did their thing. And the hot take artists came out and they dragged this young lady for talking all that smack and then not backing it up. And frankly, a lot of it was deserved. You go run your mouth and you talk about how you're this, that, and the other, and then you get clowned in a race. We're going to make fun of you a little bit. The problem is, it's hard to tell when certain people are making fun because it's just good-natured sports mockery. Because, you come in last place after you said you were all this, then, yeah, we're inclined to give you a hard time a little bit. And then there are those who are doing it from a position of hatred, of bigotry, of other things. And so it kind of makes you pause before you crack a joke because you don't want to look like somebody who's cracking that joke for the wrong reasons. And that's been sort of a tightrope that I've been walking the last couple of days because I've had fun with it. I shared a meme that I saw on Facebook about it in our chat, and I thought that was funny, and I didn't think it was in poor taste or over the line or anything like that. But, then you got people just nonstop hitting her over the head. Guys on FS1, like Marcellus Wiley and Emmanuel Acho were getting into it with Ryan Clark about it, and I'm just like...
There's a point where it's too much, and it's going beyond what is deserved.
Yeah.
Because, the thing is, a lot of the crap that we heard her talk, that wasn't from before the race. That was from immediately after she finished last in a race.
Oh, that was after?
That was after the race.
That's why she was saying stuff.
So after she finished last in that race, she said, "I'm not upset with myself at all. This is one race. I'm not done. You know what I'm capable of. Count me out if you want to. Talk all the S you want because I'm here to say I'm not done. I'm the 6th fastest woman in this game ever and can't nobody take that away from me. Congratulations to the winners. Congratulations to the people that won, but they're not done seeing me yet, period." And people seem to kind of take a bit of an issue with that, which, like...
I don't take an issue.
I really don't either, because, like, I can understand where when you have a bad race like that, it's a little bit weird to be the one who's interviewed instead of them, like, going and interviewing the people, the 8 women who finished ahead of her in the race. But you also understand why they interviewed her, because of everything that happened and the fact that she was prohibited from competing in the games, it's a story, and you got to follow that up. So I get interviewing her, and there can be a fine line between being confident and being cocky, being confident that you're going to continue to be good, and being a poor loser. And I don't think she crossed that line here at all. I don't think she was being a poor loser. I don't think she congratulated the women who finished ahead of her. She pointed out the fact that she's the 6th fastest woman in the game ever. That's true. It didn't happen that day. She finished 9th out of 9, which is
and again,
not good for that look.
Even 6th out of 9 doesn't sound great.
No,
either,
but she has the 6th fastest 100-meter time for a woman ever in history. So you can't take that away from her. Yeah, somebody else could pass her in the future, but as of this moment, as of the time that she ran that time, she's the 6th fastest woman ever.
Yeah, and
she deserves to use that, not necessarily to flaunt herself in front of this field, which again she didn't do. She wasn't being a poor loser or taking anything away from the accomplishments that the other women in that race had on that day. She's just saying, like, I still deserve some respect for what I've done, and I've done it before. I can do it again. Y'all haven't seen the last of me. I'll be back. And I have no problem with that. Good for her.
Yeah, like I said, it's not even about the attitude, because again, she came into the race basically saying that I'm who the people want to see, and some people would say that's cocky, and I would agree, and some people would say that's 100% right, and I would agree, because the only reason we're talking about this is because Sha'Carri Richardson raced in this race. I wouldn't have watched
how many boxers in history have we seen act exactly that way?
All of them.
Pretty much all of them.
Like every single one.
Muhammad Ali did it. Mike Tyson did it. And
Floyd
guess
Mayweather
what?
does it, yes.
From time to time, with the exception, I guess, of Floyd Mayweather, those guys lost after talking all that crap.
Yeah, they've lost some fights, yeah.
People gave them hell for it, I'm sure, and would have done even more so if social media existed at the time. But it doesn't take away from how great they were as competitors. And I don't think that we need to make such a big deal about it. I'm with Eric. We can make you can crack some jokes about it, and they can be in fine taste, and it's fine. But to completely try and drag her through the mud and the muck and make it out to be something more than it was is just uncalled for. We're better than that. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, it's just a person who made did a lot of self-promotion, and she had a disappointing race. That's it. Like, it doesn't have to be more than that. It can just be something we forget about in a few days, and next time she competes, we're all going to be watching.
Right,
and, we're going to be tuning in because, you mentioned the fact that she's got the 6th highest time. Well, had she run that time, she would have finished 2nd in this race among a field of Olympian medal winners.
And keep in mind, track is not exactly one of the more watched sports. I mean, certainly during the Olympics, most people tune in, especially for the 100 and stuff like that.
So much
but outside the Olympics, people don't necessarily just tune in for random meets, even for the 100-meter dash.
Except if you're
you
Alex
can bet
Mayo,
people are going to tune in to watch her next race. I mean, I can't think of any better promotion for the sport than that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I really
it's a
can't.
television show.
Yes, exactly. So I've got no problem with it. My only problem lies with the people who are making way too big a deal over it.
Yeah, some people just need to dial it back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because sometimes it's like
the decaf.
Like if the answer is I'm doing this because I'm trying to have fun with it, okay. If you're doing this because you feel some sort of way, you got some
about
anger,
a woman of color
or
saying some stuff,
grievance, then you need to realize this isn't about you. So just back away from the keyboard.
Okay. Alrighty, some other stuff. Right quick, maybe. Draymond Green and KD have a chat. Didn't this happen 3 years ago? Right? Like, what am I missing?
They've probably had a few chats in the interim too.
Yes, they have. And well, this is Draymond Green has a show called Chips, It's a podcast. I think it might be a YouTube show too. And in a recent episode, he sat down for a one-on-one interview with Kevin Durant. And among other things, the conflict that they had with each other in the 2018-2019 season, the early part, came up. Along with Draymond asking Kevin Durant, why don't you have any kids? Which, it got very personal. It was definitely not a softball interview for KD.
Did KD know that this was what he was signing up for when he went on the show?
He must have. I can't imagine Kevin Durant would do something.
Like, did he
this
seem
with that.
prepared with his answers? And
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
to some extent?
He wasn't. Didn't seem like he was caught off guard. But
Okay. That's good. Jeez.
yeah, good. But Draymond wasn't playing with him, so he asked him again about where he came out with their beef that they had. So, for those that don't remember, the Warriors were playing the Clippers on the road, I think in November of 2018, and Steph Curry was out with a groin injury. He missed a few weeks early in the season after the Warriors started off hot, and they kind of played some mediocre ball without Steph, which always seemed to happen with the Warriors. So, and then they go to LA to play the Clippers. The game's tied. The Warriors get a stop. They retrieve the rebound. Draymond Green grabs the ball, and Kevin Durant starts clapping for Green to give him the ball, but Green decides to push it in transition instead to try to create a bucket that way. Ends up turning the ball over. They go to overtime, and they start arguing. They eventually lose in overtime. The argument continued in the locker room, and the conversation turned to Kevin Durant's status as a pending free agent, why he's refused to re-up with Golden State, yada, yada, yada. Draymond Green called him a bitch a few times, apparently, and basically told Kevin, basically accused him of disloyalty and not being willing to be a part of the team. And so he basically said to him, well, we won without you, so yada, yada, yada. So obviously that was a big problem for the Warriors because they kind of wanted to have Kevin Durant stay because Kevin Durant's really, really good at basketball and he makes their team really, really good.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is Draymond Green ends up getting suspended for a game by his team. And Steve Kerr and Bob Myers and the Warriors brass kind of got involved. And KD and Draymond seemed to agree that the front office was sort of responsible for why things never got smoothed over because they inserted themselves in the mix. And I found that humorous, to say the least, because the implication from Draymond was that he was willing to apologize, but not if they forced him to. Which tells me you're not really all that willing to apologize, because being apologetic has to do with how you feel, not how somebody else feels.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
so,
How can you be willing to apologize, but not if somebody forces you to? That doesn't make any sense to me.
So I can empathize to an extent with that feeling because I've sort of had that feeling at times in the past where, I can realize that I'm in the wrong about something and be ready to apologize. But when somebody else tells me to, it's not so much that, like, out of spite, I'm just, like, not going to because they're telling me to. It's more that I get frustrated because now the person I'm apologizing to, for all, like, they might take it as, oh, I'm only apologizing because I'm being told to, not because he's sincere. And so they may not take my sincerity for what it is. And that can be frustrating. So I can understand it from that perspective if that's what it was for Draymond. If it's just, purely, I'm not going to do it because you told me to, that's problematic. Like, that, I agree, doesn't really sound like you were ready to apologize. But I can understand being frustrated that, now KD might not think that I'm being sincere because he thinks that I'm being forced to.
It sounds like a lot of stuff that doesn't really matter because Kevin Durant was leaving no matter what. He was leaving before they had this argument. He was leaving before Draymond Green did or didn't apologize. That's the whole reason why they were having the fight in the first place, is because Kevin was going to leave. So, like, he was not really considering returning to Golden State. He had plans to go to Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving because they were both pending free agents that year. They knew it, and that was the plan. It was basically come back to Golden State, try to win a third ring, and then bounce. And so that didn't go to plan because Kevin got hurt, and then Klay got hurt, and so no third ring, but then he bounced. and that's how we ended up here. And it's interesting because this happened 3 years ago. This seems like ancient history, and yet neither of these guys seem to have gotten over it. Everybody else has moved on, but Kevin hasn't seemed to get over it, and Draymond hasn't gotten over it, and neither one of them seem to want to take much responsibility for it. And I feel like if you're Bob Myers, the general manager of the Warriors, or you're Steve Kerr, and you've got one of your players, who you still currently coach, by the way, going on a national platform, international platform, and saying, yeah, y'all screwed this all up, it's not my fault. That's... The relationship can't be the same today. It just can't. Like, maybe people will get over it and go their separate ways and they'll come back and figure it out, but I just can't imagine that anybody working for the Golden State Warriors thought that was good for the team. Because there were shots fired at members of the brass that still dictate how the team is built and how the team is coached. So that's going to add a little more drama because that's what Draymond Green does. He brings drama to the table. And, Stephen A. Smith was asking, where was Steph Curry in all this? Like, well, he was not there because he was hurt. They actually flew his ass out to the road trip, which people never do. Usually on the road, when you're injured, you stay home and get treatment. They said, okay, Steph, you got to get your ass out there and start being a peacemaker because these guys are being a problem. So they actually had to ship Steph Curry solely for the purpose of keeping these people from killing each other. So
Goodness.
This is absurd.
I thought it was so melodramatic when it happened, when Steve Kerr was talking about, we're all hurting a little bit right now. I'm like, y'all are the two-time defending champs, and you're still the best team in the Western Conference. Relax, okay? Two guys had a fight. Get over it. It didn't make any sense to me, but these two guys, they have to have it their way, and you create that level of drama with a couple of big egos, and suddenly a little deal becomes a big deal.
Yeah, I've got some issues with this story. The first thing is that Kevin Durant and Draymond Green are supposed to be grown men. They were grown men when this happened. Not everybody's going to agree all the time, and that's okay. Sometimes it gets a little heated. You're in overtime of an NBA game. It might get a little more heated. But you know what? You sit down afterwards and you talk about it like, hey, this is where I was coming from. This is where you were coming from. I overreacted. I'm sorry. And then you move on. But no, it's been 3 years and this crap bubbles up again. I thought this was a non-story when it happened. It's definitely a non-story now. And, just like, why though? Did we skip this lesson in kindergarten class? I mean, just come on. Let's handle ourselves like adults. I think both of these guys need to move on from this, and they need to figure out how to do it real quick. This isn't how grown-ups behave, even if you are in the NBA making millions of dollars. This doesn't fly with me. Oh, all right. So I guess that puts a nice cap on that. On to football. So we'll start with the Ravens. The Ravens beat the Panthers in Charlotte 20-3 on Saturday night to increase their preseason win streak to 19 consecutive games, tying the Green Bay Packers from 1959 and 1962, who were coached by Vince Lombardi. The preseason win streak, it's the biggest no deal possible, right? Like, preseason games are irrelevant. You shouldn't put any stock in preseason games. I haven't watched either of the games this season. I've been traveling, I think, for both of them. But usually preseason, they just roll the ball out there. You want to see what the rookies look like, and you want to see that, everybody sort of knows what they're doing and installing the offense and all that kind of stuff. But, once you win 19 games in a row, they are keeping score in these things. People are making a real effort. So when you win this many, I think it means something. I don't think it means that much of something. It's really just, we've drafted well, and our team has good depth. And I think that's all it means. They don't give away trophies in the preseason. So, it's interesting, I guess, but I think that's all it really is. There was a pair of joint practices at Wofford College leading up to this game last week. I remember when they first announced this, I considered riding up there because I think it's only like 2.5 hours away. Wofford is in Spartanburg or something, South Carolina. Really right up the highway from here. Unfortunately, inside linebacker L.J. Fort will be out for the season with a torn ACL. That's unfortunate because he was a real contributor on this Ravens team. But the Ravens' depth's going to be tested. It's time for Patrick Queen to step up. It's time for Malik Harrison to step up. The two guys who were rookies last year, they've had a full off season coming into this season. So, it's the pros and it's time to get it done. And then the Ravens' final preseason game is this coming Saturday night at the Washington football team. Y'all may have heard of them. The game is at 6 o'clock. It's at FedEx Field. Are you guys going? Y'all should go.
No, I'm not going to a preseason football game.
I don't want to be in another video that we've seen in Pittsburgh and in LA with dumbasses fighting, because somehow, by pure coincidence, Corey and I would end up sitting next to the people that got into a fight, and we would get rolled into it, and we would become YouTube stars for all the wrong reasons. So I'm gonna pass.
Well, just don't discreetly try to throw your full cup of soda at somebody. Just don't do that.
I would rather not,
I
because
mean,
I probably paid $20 for that soda anyway, so I'm going to hold on to it.
Yeah, I am not going.
Oh, y'all should go. It sounds fun. Aside from the fights and stuff, just behave yourself.
And aside from being at FedEx Field, which is a dump, and aside from
What's-
the fact that
What's wrong with
FedEx Field is trash.
Because of what, and what?
it's poorly
what
designed.
exactly is wrong?
The concourse is crappy. The parking is atrocious. And
There's not a redeeming thing about that place.
Nah, it sucks. It's poorly constructed, done on the cheap.
Supposedly they did a whole lot of work on the field this offseason, and so maybe that's redeeming, but that doesn't do anything for me as in the fan experience.
That never works. They've insisted that they've redone the field pretty much
I also
every 5
doubt
years,
that made a difference.
It still
but
sucks.
even if it did make a difference, even if it is great now, that does nothing for me with the fan experience. There's not a redeeming thing about the stadium for fans.
Yeah, I don't dig it. It's not a great atmosphere.
I mean, the team has been bad this whole century. Right?
And?
Like,
This doesn't have anything to do with the product on the field. This has to do with the product in the stadium. It's
I
trash.
mean, there's, I'm sure when the Cowboys played at Texas Stadium, that place was a dump,
Washington
but
could
it
be
was
16-0, and I would have zero interest in going to the 17th game this season.
packed. Ooh.
Well, those tickets would be expensive as hell, so...
I would not have any interest if they were given to me for free.
Oh, I would go if they were free.
No
It's
thanks.
a
I'd absolutely
preseason game. How
I'm
much could
not-
it cost? It can't be
I'm
more
not
than
sitting
$10.
through a stupid game at FedEx Field. No, thank you. Anyway,
Yeah.
the team is coming off of their
Yeah, the
first
team.
preseason win. They beat the Bengals 17-13 on Saturday. First team offense played okay. They were not great, but Fitzpatrick completed 7 passes for like 96 yards. So there was that. I thought Taylor Heineke looked a little bit better than Fitzpatrick. He took what the defense gave him, went 11 for 13 for 80 yards, and he also ran 4 times for 26 yards. The big news out of that game was Dustin Hopkins bouncing back after missing 2 field goals in the first preseason game. He made all 3 this week. Granted, the longest of the 3 was only 34 yards, so...
Isn't that the extra point distance now?
Basically, yeah. And then Jarrett Patterson was kind of the story of the game. He carried the ball 16 times for 71 yards and the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter that ultimately won the game for us. He's a undrafted rookie out of Buffalo. He may have earned himself a spot on the team, but he's not really going to play into the mix too much during the season, because everything I'm hearing is that Antonio Gibson is being prepped to be the guy, the workhorse back out of the backfield, which he should be. He should have been last year when we, for whatever reason, kept using J.D. McKissick. I still don't know why.
McKissick had a couple of really nice games.
He had a couple of good plays, but Antonio Gibson is a better pass catcher out of the backfield than J.D. McKissick, and that's literally all that J.D. McKissick was on the team to do.
Yes.
So just use Gibson. And as far as I can tell, that's what they intend to do this year. So, we've also got Jonathan Williams and Peyton Barber on the team. I would imagine that Patterson may have earned one of those other two spots, and then one of those two will take the third, unless we decide to keep 4 running backs, which I really don't know why we would at this point. If we're not planning to have an RBBC in the backfield, may as well run with 3 of them. So we'll see what happens there. But other than that, not really a whole lot to report on Washington. It's the preseason. Who cares? We'll play the Ravens as we always do. We'll get our butts kicked as we always do.
That's not true. The Ravens usually win late against the team in the preseason.
Yeah, that's fair. Regardless, we'll lose like we usually do.
I didn't even know that.
And then we'll go into the regular season and we'll see what the product actually looks like on the field. The most interesting thing to me, the only interesting thing to me going into the regular season is who is actually going to end up being the starting quarterback. Is Fitzpatrick going to be the starter week 1, or do the coaches feel like Heineke has done enough in the preseason to maybe win that role?
I don't get the vibe that Heineke's going to be starting.
I don't either.
You had Heineke Team 7 back in, was that March?
Yeah, and there's a reason why it was only 7, because he's Taylor Heineke.
I still think that he is going to be the starter at some point this season.
Okay, it's Fitzpatrick. He's got a history.
Right, but it probably won't be week 1.
Fitzmagic is fleeting, after all.
Yes, indeed. That was a title. I believe I said that.
Yes, you did. Yes. Along with Heineke Team 7.
Yeah, I said that as well, yes. Along with Tummy Tickler, but that's not related. I just wanted to say it again because
Speaking of Tummy Tickler, though,
I
did not get a chance to watch last week's episode of Hard Knocks. I'll probably do that tonight after we finish wrapping up the show.
I've heard Hard Knocks is boring now. Like, I've heard this year, like after week 1, the Cowboys are just not that interesting.
I mean, they've only done 2 episodes so far. The 3rd episode is coming out tomorrow.
Okay, well,
so I feel like I mean the first episode was pretty good. So episode 2 might have been boring.
Everybody said episode 2 was boring. Yeah.
Well, I'll watch it anyway.
Right. Eric, your Saints are about to. We've got an ESPN alert. Your Saints are about to take the field against Trevor Lawrence and the Jags.
Yes, they are.
I didn't know that they played Monday preseason games.
Yeah, there's usually one.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill will continue their quarterback auditions. Jameis is actually starting tonight, whereas Taysom Hill started, I believe, the last
week.
Game.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
No. Let's see. On the West Coast, Jimmy G stinks apparently. I don't know. This is a little bit of we notice.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
I mean, I think that we agreed that he's at least a NFL quarterback. Sure. But he looked like booty butt cheeks.
Nathan Peterman, technically.
Nathan Peterman's not an NFL quarterback. He's just there for some reason. But
last year's Hard Knocks makes me want him to actually be decent.
No, I want to see Nathan Peterman play just to see how bad it gets, just to see the carnage. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo did not look good yesterday, and I don't really know what to make of it because who cares? You know, he's still. I think that Kyle Shanahan would agree, and John Lynch would agree that they're better served having Jimmy Garoppolo start this year because Trey Lance is not really ready yet, which is fine. But I also know that the 49ers are trying to win, the Super Bowl because they've got a Super Bowl roster. I mean, 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl and were 10 minutes or so from winning the Super Bowl and didn't get it done. So they're definitely in win-now mode, and if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to go out there and be trash, then what do you do? I mean, you don't want to rush the development of your first-round pick if you don't think he's ready. But at the same time, you also don't want this middling starter playing like crap and costing you a potential chance at a playoff spot. So they're
particularly in their division.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Arizona Cardinals are basically being fit for
lock for
last
fourth.
place, and we don't really think the Cardinals are bad. Tells you all you need to know about that division.
Yeah. I mean, it underscores the importance of having a good quarterback in today's NFL. Like you said, the 49ers were possibly a better quarterback away from winning that Super Bowl. So, you don't
they
want to
got Trey
squander
Lance.
this team.
Corey's a
Because-
certified Trey Lance hater.
I am.
How are you a hater? How many times have you seen him play?
I
Willing to
watched
put
I
the
watched his
over-under
college
at
tape.
0.
He is so inaccurate.
He completed like 67% of his passes.
No, he didn't.
He did.
Trey Lance.
Dead air. Thanks.
Trey Lance completed like 57% of his passes.
No, in his one full season, he definitely completed more than that. Dead air again.
Anyway, no, we were just listing all the Orioles' wins from the last couple weeks.
Yes, but that
Just
was
missed that part. So I mean, this is the pros, and you got to get it done or get out of here. So if you're Jimmy G, you need to play at a high level. Otherwise, you're going to sit on the bench, and Trey Lance is going to be out there. And if he doesn't play at a high level, he's going to sit on the bench too. You have to win. You have to be successful at the NFL level. Otherwise, people lose their jobs. And I've gone on and on and on about this, about Trey Lance being the number 3 pick in the draft, but we're not sure if he's ready to play. Well, then why did you pick him? Number 3. You traded up in the draft to pick this guy who's a project.
Well, and to be fair to them, though, they are also the only team that drafted a quarterback while having a viable starter on their roster. I mean, the Jags have to start Lawrence. The Jets have to start Zach Wilson because they got rid of Sam Darnold, who I don't think was viable anyway. And the Bears had no choice. And although the Bears seem like they're going to start Andy Dalton, we'll get to that in a little bit. And who the hell else? The Patriots have Cam and Mac Jones squaring off for a QB battle. But Cam, we think, can be viable if he's healthy. So
I have doubts about Mac Jones, honestly.
Yeah, I'll take Cam over Mac Jones.
I mean, yeah, I would too. But clearly the Patriots are looking at Mac as the future quarterback.
I mean, we know Cam's not the future quarterback.
Yes, because he's old and he's hurt all the time.
Yeah, but he should be the present quarterback, whereas Justin Fields should be the present and future quarterback for the Bears.
I mean, absolutely. Either the Bears, when they say, well, they're like, we're not sure if Justin Fields is ready, and we're going to start Andy Dalton and stuff, like, they're either lying or need to be fired. Those are the two sides of it to me. Because this is so ridiculous. You draft this guy in the first round. We have seen the tape. Hugh Jackson and all 3 of us have seen the tape because Fields played at a big school. So we know he's better than Andy Dalton. Why are they running Andy Dalton out there? What are you doing? There's only 17 games. You have to have your best guys out there all the time if possible. So, it's starting to remind me more and more of when our boy Hugh Jackson decided to start Super Bowl champion Tyrod Taylor instead of Baker Mayfield.
That is exactly the comparison that I was going to make, because that's what this feels like to me. Like, I don't really care too much about who's starting in the preseason. I mean, I think it's a little bit silly if you're going to start Justin Fields not to start in the preseason to let him get some reps against the other team's starting defense. So from that perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. As long as you're running the best quarterback on your team out there week 1. But Matt Nagy he just seems so insistent that no matter what, Andy Dalton is starting week 1. And I think it's so stupid every time a head coach deals in any sort of absolute like that. Like, you don't know what's going to happen in the preseason. You don't know if the guy who you are certifying as the no doubt week 1 starter is just going to lay a turd on the field every week of the preseason, and the other guy is going to be excellent. And not to say that's been Dalton, because Dalton has been fine this preseason, but
He
Fields
doesn't
has
have
been
as much
better.
upside.
Fields has absolutely been better. And yes, Fields is playing against backups. There's only so much you can do about trying to evaluate a guy in that situation when you're not giving him an opportunity against the starters. The bottom line is he's playing better football than Andy Dalton in the first 2 games of this preseason, and I don't think that you should be painting yourself into a corner insisting that I don't care, Dalton is the starter.
Well, and the thing is, these decisions aren't made based off of preseason performance. They're made based on what you show in training camp. And the Dolphins and the Bears had a joint practice a couple weeks ago, or a series of joint practices, and every coach that would talk to anybody with a microphone or a media outlet attached to them said, between the two teams, the best quarterback on the field has been hands down Justin Fields, which means they're saying he's been better than Tua Tagovailoa as well, who is going to his second year as a starter, and who the Dolphins have reason to believe in because he's played very well this preseason. So Justin Fields is clearly ready to play, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't feel like, again, you want to defer to the professionals that are in the building with him every day, but it doesn't feel like this is based off of anything related to ability. It feels like it's related to some idea of just sticking to the script or something. It's hard to make what they're trying to do. I understand.
They brought Dalton in, and back in April they say,
they tweeted QB1.
We feel like he's the starter. Well, guess what's happened since then?
Yeah, you traded up to draft a better quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. You got your guy.
Yeah, this again, I referenced this maybe a couple weeks ago. It feels like the 2008 Mariners when they decided that they were just going to let Eric Bedard start opening day, the first day of spring training, when Felix Hernandez was on the team. And I'm just like...
Okay, so you have a Hall of Famer on your roster, and you have Eric Bedard, who's notably not going to be a Hall of Famer. You decide to go with the not Hall of Famer?
I don't know if Felix Hernandez is going to go to the Hall of Fame, but he certainly, had a Hall of Fame
going to the
prime.
Hall of Fame.
I don't think he pitched well for long enough. I don't think he pitched well for long enough to make the Hall of Fame.
I am shocked to hear that from you.
Why are you shocked to hear that from me?
Because I think he pitched well enough for long enough to be in the Hall of Fame, and you are a King Felix stan.
Felix was my favorite pitcher in baseball, yes, but I'm still going to call it how I see it. He didn't have a long enough peak, I don't think. But regardless, he had a Hall of Fame peak. Like, when he was at his best, he was great. Like, Hall of Fame good. And they were like, yeah, Eric Bedard, he's the shiny new toy. Let's just throw him out there. And I'm like, can we have you got two great pitchers. That was the whole point of bringing Bedard in.
In this case, you got two shiny new toys, except one of them is not so shiny because he's been roughed up.
He's a little red.
He got really roughed up with the Cowboys last year.
Although, you got to give him credit. The beard glow up is nice. He looks good.
He does.
He looks good.
He does.
But yeah, I think that, is this some ruse to keep him from getting trucked by Aaron Donald in week 1? Is that the idea? You just don't want him to face the Rams? Because if that's it, you can say it, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings. I would get it if you say, yeah, we want to wait a couple weeks before. We don't want him to be thrown into the fire against that team week 1. I would kind of get it, although I would say that's kind of cowardly. But this idea that Dalton is more fit to play is just, stop lying. Like, we're not dumb.
Well, I do take some issue with the idea that, we don't want to throw him out there against Aaron Donald. Like, well, why does your offensive line suck? That's really what they're saying. It's like, well, our offensive line is bad, but we're not going to say it's bad because we're responsible for that. We're just going to say some other old-timey mumbo-jumbo and have that be it. Like that, again, don't insult our intelligence. We watch football a little bit, too.
And the thing that bothers me about this, though, is that the Bears made the playoffs last year. Like, they could easily make the playoffs again.
Oh, right, they did.
Yeah,
they
made
with
the
playoffs.
MVP.
MVP.
With the
Yeah,
MVP.
they got rid of the MVP and replaced him with presumably somebody better. And their division has gotten worse.
But
I mean,
will he win an MVP?
Probably not. I don't know. But I
I agree with you, Eric. The Bears could win this division.
it's not out of the question.
Yeah.
I mean, the Vikings are kind of meh. I mean, I think the Packers are going to win the division.
I do too.
But the Bears could certainly compete for a wild card spot. They did last year, and they got a presumably better quarterback this year. So I
If they
don't
use him.
Yes, if they use him. So this idea of, okay, we're going to protect him from the Rams. I seem to recall the Bears played the Rams in a really, really crappy primetime game. And it was really, really crappy because it was the Bears. The Bears were horrible. Nick Foles was just a statue back there. But the Bears were in the game because their defense was holding the Rams at bay. The Rams eventually won. Now, of course, the Rams had Jared Goff back then, and now they've got Matt Stafford, so they're presumably going to be significantly better at the quarterback position. But you're in position to get to the playoffs again if you play your best guys. So play your best guys. It's not a situation like the Jaguars where, despite what Evan thinks, they're not making the playoffs, where you got no hope. This is the Bears. They've got a good defense. They've got a decent running game. Their offensive line's not very good, but they've got Allen Robinson. They can make a postseason run. You got to try.
Are you saying the Bears are who you thought they were?
Fairly recently, previously broken leg, held up to Aaron Donald, jumping on his back like a 2-year-old kid.
That was
I'm
so
pretty
scary.
sure that Justin Fields can handle.
That was so
Also,
scary.
Aaron
previously broken leg is like understatement of the year.
Previously shattered and twisted up leg is more like it. And then infected.
Yeah.
He was on his back. I was like, oh my God. He was even joking about it on the sidelines. That leg's strong. Like, basically, like damn. Like,
Yeah,
like he was surprised he didn't break him in two.
You know, he's been rebuilt from the ground up.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, the Bears fans booed Andy Dalton.
And Justin
they're
Fields,
sort of-
Justin Fields stuck up for him, though. I thought that
Which
was
I
good.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought that was good of him to do that.
Like,
I mean, fans will be fans, but like they're directing their booing at the wrong people. I guess you can't really boo the coach and general manager. You know, you can't really boo them, but you're sort of booing their decision to run out the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that that's what they mean.
Yes, but it still sucks for Andy Dalton because he's entitled to try to hold down the starting spot, and he's entitled to play in the NFL. So
Yeah. I mean, you know,
he's not like a trash quarterback or anything. Like he, if the
just not a
Bears
starter
do decide to start him, like he'll play fine. I got no problem with Andy Dalton. I just think that Justin Fields is better and
agree with that.
and I think is ready to start week 1.
I will say though, Andy Dalton lives rent free in the back of my sports fan brain because we had some issues. So if this guy could just get off the Ravens schedule, that would be great.
I ended up on freezing cold takes, old takes exposed, because I was hating on Andy Dalton. This is on my now defunct Twitter when Dalton was prepared to lead the Bengals to a potential game-winning drive, and I basically said, "There's no way in hell he gets this done," and then he did, and I, self-reported to Old Takes Exposed, and they retweeted it, and I got a whole bunch of gas, but I was like, come on, guys. I was doubting Andy Dalton in crunch time. Like, it wasn't like I was doing something sacrilegious. It wasn't like I was sitting there saying, Reggie Jackson's not going to hit a home run here in the playoffs.
I mean, well, I want to be fully fair to Andy Dalton. He's had a really good NFL career, right? He was a second rounder out of TCU. He took the Bengals to the playoffs. They went to the playoffs 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
What can the current Bengals say about going to the playoffs at all?
Nothing.
Right? Nothing. They don't need to worry about going to the playoffs. So, Andy Dalton's had a good career. He's been in the league a long time. What? It's been 10 years now? 11 years?
Yeah, 2011 was his rookie year.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah.
Again,
I'm glad he figured out the beard thing because he looks good.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm indifferent on Andy Dalton's beard, I guess. It's a little too orange for me.
That's his hair color. What do you like?
Okay.
What do you want him to do?
I don't know. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. It's a lot of red rifle coming at you. Is all I have to say about that. Yeah. So we're stretching this out. So let's get ready to get out of here. Has there been any Woj bombs? Anything happen?
I forgot to mention one tidbit when we were talking about the Padres. They fired their pitching coach today
Oh snap!
to quote, give themselves a new voice because firing a hitting or pitching coach has worked exactly 0.0% of the time. Like it does not happen.
Callback.
Yes, we are full of callbacks today, but yeah, that never works. It never actually fixes anything. It's just an excuse to do something to make somebody feel like they're trying to do something. It's nonsense.
I mean, sort of like the Orioles DFAing Maikel Franco. Like, they're not going to go out and win 18 games in a row now. They got rid of him. But, well, he did suck. So, but still, like, it's too little, too late, right? The cake is being frosted now. There's no, you can't put new stuff in at this point. It's too late. I mean, I think Jace Tingler might have beclowned himself a little bit last year with the Tatis grand slam on a 3-0 pitch in Texas situation, making Tatis apologize and all that other nonsense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Jace Tingler, really? Corey, you got anything?
Not really. I mean, next week we'll probably do our fantasy football podcast, do our rankings and get that all set and get that out to our fans as we get set to do our drafts. I mean, after this weekend, preseason is over. Only 3 weeks of games this year, and so you guys will get about a 2-week layover to fit your drafts in before the season starts on September 9th. But yeah, so we'll probably do that show sometime next week.
Yes. So I've got my first draft September 2nd, another one September 5th,
It's like I'm
and
gonna
another
have
one.
2 on September 2nd.
Oh. Yeah. I've actually had 2 drafts at the same time. Like I've been
Yeah, that's what
on
it's
the
looking
clock
like is
in
going to
2
be the
leagues
deal for me.
at the same time. And then another one on the 7th. So
I will need Fantasy Pros helping me to keep track of those 2.
yeah, I've got calendar events on my phone. We're good to go. Corey, I wanted to ask you this on the podcast. So, we might, I don't know why, but like,
Okay.
how are we handling the 17th game in the league that you're the commissioner of? Like, what ended up getting decided?
So we're playing a 15th regular season game and then keeping our 4-team playoff that we normally have for our 12-team league. The way that it's going to work is so every year when we do our division draft and set our divisions, reset our divisions, you have the winner and the runner-up from the previous season. They pick their divisions, and the winner becomes, East 1, basically in my list, and the runner-up is West 1, right? Then the 3 guys that they pick for their division become East 2, East 3, East 4, West 2, West 3, West 4 in their order of standings from the previous season.
Oh, not in the order they were picked in the division.
Not in the order they were picked in the division draft, because I don't reveal the order to anybody outside of the ones who made the decision.
Why is that a secret?
I don't want anybody to feel. I mean, it's silly because probably nobody would really get their feelings hurt at this point. I mean, we're 8 years into this league now. Is that right? 8 years, something like that.
We're also really old now,
and we're also old enough that we shouldn't really have our feelings hurt. But it's just a respect thing, Don't tell somebody like, this person is clearly saying that you are the worst player here. So I don't want anybody to feel like they don't respect me as a player. I'm not going to play anymore. I just don't want to risk anything like that. So we don't reveal the order that they were picked.
But we know though.
The people who actually chose know.
There was a screenshot shared.
And then you and I know because we're the commissioners.
Yeah, and we also got a nice screenshot from one of the individuals who participated in it.
Was that for me?
That's you, yes.
Oh.
So anyway,
Maybe names, I guess.
So anyway, I just put them in the order of their standings from the preseason, and then the 4 teams that are not selected in the division draft, they're Central 1 through 4 again in the order they finished the previous season. So the West 1 and East 1 teams, they always lead off the season as the game of the week in a rematch of the previous year's championship. They will play a second time this year.
Okay.
And then I believe it's East 2 and West 2 will play again. And then it's like, I think it's like East 3 versus Central 4, West 3 versus Central 3, East 4 versus Central 2, and so on. Because the way that it works is you figure, however I did it, I tried to make it so that you're playing against another team from another division that you finished close to in the standings the previous year. Okay. So you're still playing twice against your division opponents, everybody else once, but then there's one non-division team that you're going to play a second time, and it's based on where you finished the year before, roughly.
Okay. So there was the full Charlie Day diagram with the yarn.
You asked, and you specifically wanted to ask on the podcast, so there you go.
Yes, and I appreciate that. I was wondering, like, what did we end up doing? Okay, so let's get ready to get up out of here. So if you made it this far in the podcast, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening at this point, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you'll know immediately when we post a new episode. You can find this podcast wherever you're listening to it right now. In addition, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. If you're listening to it, but it's not on your podcast app of choice, please feel free to let us know, and we will do whatever we can to get on there. So you can let us know by emailing us at thesportsballers@gmail.com. Please feel free to send us an email. We will have a little we've got a mailbag section in our notes. Unfortunately, it's usually empty. So
football season's coming up, so maybe we'll get some love.
Yeah, we'll start getting some, I'm sure. We did last year, so I'm sure we will this
we're
year.
getting a little bit of a lull in the sports calendar right now, but it's about to heat back up big time.
And we'll be moving back to Wednesdays either next week or the week after. Depends on how well our guys do in the softball game this week that I will not be able to play in, unfortunately.
So count on us moving back to Wednesday after this week, we're gonna lose, man.
Unless we decide to do like this podcast Monday and the fantasy thing Wednesday and then switch. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll let you know on Twitter, for example.
Yes.
At SportsBallers18 is the show Twitter. All three of us have access to it, and oftentimes that Twitter account's usually, at least for me anyway, to just make fun of each of the three of us, including myself. I often find, I'm having a Twitter conversation with two of my accounts, just having a good time. I mean, Twitter's supposed to be silly, if you ask me.
Those instances are quite enjoyable.
Yeah. So let's see. You can follow Corey on Twitter at Corey Puffett. You can follow Eric on Twitter at Quagmire67. Follow me on Twitter at Evan_Ash13. You should go find us on Facebook. We are broadcasting live on Facebook right now.
We actually have a few people who have tuned in.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
and I'm talking like the most that you can use the word few for, so 4.
Oh, I thought a few was 3 specifically.
A few is 3 or 4.
A few was definitely 3 in my mind.
Well,
you can't have
wrong.
4 and a few.
Happy birthday, Kobe.
Wait, what?
It's Kobe Bryant's birthday.
Oh.
Yeah, today's Kobe Bryant's birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kobe.
Oh, well, we should make a bigger deal than just throwing it in there randomly. Yes, happy birthday, Kobe.
Evan never asked me if I wanted to do a shout-out, so that was my shout-out that I had to work in. Black Mamba would have been 43 today. May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace, exactly. So, let's see. Also, write us a review. We haven't had one of those in a long time. Go ahead and do that. 5 stars, preferably. But, if you feel so inclined, if you hate us, but you made it this far, but you hate us that much, go ahead and leave us a review. Is that everything? Or does anybody have any shout-outs, for example? Now that we've gotten to that point in the podcast.
Well, I just did mine, so yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so nothing's happened. The Orioles are undefeated today. Let's have a parade down Pratt Street. They didn't lose. So for Corey and for Eric, I'm Evan. This has been the Sports Ballers Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.